Welcome back to Takeout. Congress has until Friday to avert a partial government shutdown. As a result of this weekend's deadly shooting in Minneapolis, Senate Democrats have vowed to block a 6-bill package of spending bills that includes, among other things, funding for ICE and Border Patrol, and it doesn't have any reforms to it. Earlier, I spoke to Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy about that and related issues. Please take a listen. Senator, summarize the weekend in Minneapolis and what you believe the events there might mean for the future of the country.
Well, I think Americans are just horrified by what they saw over the weekend and frankly have been horrified for weeks. Minneapolis is a dystopia and it's out of control because DHS and ICE are there disobeying the law on a daily basis. Trump isn't there to try to enhance public safety. He's there to create confrontation and chaos. And the easiest thing that needs to happen right now is for ICE to leave Minneapolis. But that's not the only place that the lawlessness is happening. All across the country, Trump is just making up his own law when it comes to immigration. He's disappearing thousands of people who are here legally applying for asylum. He's locking up people with green cards, American citizens. I think the country saw what happened over the weekend, the second killing on videotape, and have just said enough. The executive branch is out of control. There doesn't seem to be any checks on their lawlessness. And it's brought us to this point where Democrats have said, listen, we just, in good conscience, in upholding our oath, cannot fund this version of the Department of Homeland Security. If there are reforms, if they start to obey the law, if they stop harassing citizens, then that's a department that we can fund. But until we get those commitments, until we get those reforms built into the law, we're not going to be able to condone this kind of out of control department.
Senator, we'll get to that funding dispute in a moment. From the podium today, the White House press secretary said the underlying cause of what happened this weekend in Minneapolis was the deliberate, hostile resistance of Mayor Jacob Frey and Governor Tim Walz. Your response?
Well, that's simply not true, and the administration has been lying through their teeth all weekend. I mean, they called this guy an assassin. They said that he was trying to murder these officers. Every single person has seen the videotape. He was simply exercising his First Amendment right, videotaping the officers. They confronted him, and then when he was trying to help a woman who was also being assaulted by the officers, they killed him. Plain and simple. So you can't trust anything this administration is saying. It's all spin. It's often outright lies. I guess, you know, the American people don't really have to listen to them anymore. They see the videos. They see these officers, you know, doing sweeps of streets in which they're just asking people who have an accent whether they're American citizens, forcing them to show papers. Nobody wants to live in a show your papers society. That sounds like a dystopian totalitarian state, not the United States of America. So I think people have decided all across the country that this, you know, kind of abuse has to come to an end.
Senator, you have suggested legislatively and otherwise that there's an overbroad interpretation of Second Amendment rights in our country and more regulation ought to be done on behalf of public safety. I wonder how you are analyzing the Second Amendment conflicts that have cropped up within the Trumpian movement after Alex Pretti's death.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that the Trump administration is using as a justification for this killing the fact that this individual was legally carrying a gun. You know, I think for Republicans, they believe in the right of people to carry concealed loaded weapons, but only if they're Republicans. Apparently, if you oppose the president politically and you carry a weapon with a permit, that's a justification for murder. Listen, I don't like these concealed carry laws. I think they generally make communities less safe. But I also don't believe that an individual who is complying with a state concealed carry law marks himself for murder by federal law enforcement officials. I think it's pretty wild that they are claiming one of the reasons this guy is dead is because he was carrying a gun, when the same people in the Trump administration have been pushing for years to get states to pass laws that allow people to carry concealed weapons.
Back to the funding dispute. It's been made clear by the Senate Republican leadership just today that they're going to proceed with what the House has passed. 6 bills together are not going to separate out the DHS funding bill, which I believe you and other Democrats are demanding. Does that mean we are heading toward another partial government shutdown?
Well, it appears that Republicans are going to force a shutdown, and we've made it very clear that we want a standalone debate on the Department of Homeland Security bill because the American people want an end to this lawlessness, and so we think it's appropriate to debate and pass some amendments to the Department of Homeland Security bill. But that doesn't mean all the other agencies have to shut down. As I understand it, there are Democratic votes sufficient to pass the other bills. All Leader Thune has to do is to put the other 5 bills on the Senate floor. They will pass. The Department of Defense will be funded. The Department of Transportation will be funded. It's his choice to shut down all those other agencies. And frankly, it's their choice to shut down the Department of Homeland Security because nothing we're asking for is unreasonable. We're simply asking for restraints on DHS so that they comply with the law. We're not talking about comprehensive immigration reform. We're not proposing to do away with ICE in this bill. We are simply talking about some restraints that will stop the horrific scenes that we are seeing in Minneapolis.
Tom Homan is heading to Minneapolis. He is the president's border czar. How do you regard that maneuver?
I have no idea. I mean, he is not a figure of restraint. I hope that after the phone call between the president and the governor, there's an effort to de-escalate. I think it's been, remarkable how peaceful the protesters in Minneapolis have been, but it's up to the president to decide. No matter who he deploys to Minneapolis, the buck stops in the Oval Office. If the president wants to comply with the law, then he needs to withdraw ICE and CBP from Minneapolis. Only he can make that decision.
Will you accept the result of a Homeland Security, FBI, and Customs and Border Patrol investigation into this matter alone?
No, there has to be a state investigation. Every single time there's a murder or a shooting like this, a state has a right to investigate. So no, there's no reason why the state of Minnesota, as is the practice, should be able to do a concurrent investigation.
Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. Appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.